Welcome back to the study of the book of Daniel. We've learned so much already. Let's continue our journey through the Word and learn more as the time approaches for the coming of the Lord Yeshua, the Messiah. Hallelujah. Let's turn to chapter 8 of Daniel. Remember, Daniel is the only name Yeshua names when he's given the end time signs. Spoken of by Daniel the prophet. You can take Daniel to the bank, okay? He's worth it. Whatever Daniel says, he means. And why was he so special? Because he was separated from Judaism, from everything that Israel had, dragged into Sin City, Babylon for over 70 years. Had his privates cut off. He couldn't have a family, didn't have a wife, didn't have kids. But I tell you what, he did have the Lord. And he said, Lord, if these three men were in the land, Noah, the father of every human in this room right now, Noah, everybody came from Noah. Job, there's none like him, one that fears God and eschews evil. And Daniel. Boy, Ezekiel expounded. Ezekiel was older than Daniel. He was in the captivity with him in Babylon. Said it wouldn't be anybody like that. He didn't mention Solomon, the wisest human ever, other than Yeshua. He didn't mention David, a man after God's heart, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. No, he mentions those three. They all feared the Lord. They all feared the Lord, but he mentioned those three. But he mentioned Daniel by name, and so did Yeshua. So that's two witnesses. Ezekiel the prophet in the Old Testament, Yeshua names Daniel. You can take Daniel to the bank. So let's take him to the bank. We're in chapter 8. Now this is the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, so that's good. Babylon is not fallen yet to Nebuchadnezzar, okay? We read about it falling, Belshazzar getting killed the same night and everything. But this is earlier. This is a vision that he had. In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me in the first. We read about that last week, the other day. And I saw the vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw the vision, and I was by the river Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had two horns, and the two horns were high. But one horn was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. You got to remember that. We're going to read the definition of that is the horns of Media and Persia, and Persia comes up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. Well, we know that the Persian Empire came out of Persia and went westward, northward up to Turkey, and southward down to Israel. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Well, of course, that notable horn is Alexander the Great. It's very notable. The whole world heard about Alexander the Great. They even made a big city down in Egypt named Alexander. The Greeks did. So this is Alexander the Great, very notable horn coming from the west, and he touched not the ground. How did they come? They had to cross the Dardanelles. His Grecian army crossed the Dardanelles, only had under 100,000, I think, and he met a 1,000,000-man Persian army and just routed them with his phalanx. Because the Greeks were healthy. They exercised a lot, and they had what they call the phalanx. And I'll explain that later, but it's 16 by 6 men. You got at least 16 men behind you pushing you. You got a long spear about 9 cubits long, they say. Just long and everything. And they couldn't stop it. They'd never seen anything like that. I'm going to show you right now. It's like a he-goat, the phalanx. Phalanx conquered the whole known world back then, the Greeks, because they'd always run and stuff like that. If you got a bunch of about 15 Greeks behind you pushing you, you're going to be pushing with that spear right through the enemy's lines, break them up, cause them to flee and everything. And I was, okay. And he came into the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river. Now, this happened, the first battle. I forgot the name of the battle, but it's the first battle that the Persian king Darius fought Daniel, and watch what happens. And ran into him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close to the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns, And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, stamped upon him, and there was one that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Alexander the Great's called great because he crossed over the Dardanelles into Turkey and smashed into him with his phalanx, and they were before the river, so they were fleeing through the river, and they were just sitting ducks, getting speared and shot with arrows and everything. It was the worst defeat ever, and it was just the first of many armies that he routed on his way. He even went to India. You know, the guy he's called great because he was the greatest military guy, and he died at 31. We're going to read about that later. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great. Very great. Gee. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of the heaven. His four generals, when he died at 31, drunk in revelry, he dies, and his four generals have to take over for him. His family, he doesn't have any family descendants. They kill his family, and it's the four big generals that have been, winning all these wars and everything like that with him. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. That's Jerusalem, Israel. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and cast some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And a host was given unto him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression. And cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Now, this did happen in the days. Greek thought, and the whole New Testament really was written with Greek, but the Greeks seem to think Greeks seek after wisdom and spiritual things and stuff like that. They got all over. And so it just stamped the truth to the ground, and they go with their Greek philosophies and stuff like that. Then I heard one saint speaking to another, and said unto the certain saint which spake, How long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? He said unto him, 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So 2,300, it's not 7 years or 3.5 years. It was a certain time period that happened during the time after Alexander died. But way after he died, about Hasmonean period, 160 or something. It came to pass, when even I, Daniel, saw the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. Now, if he's standing between the banks of the river, that means he's walking on water. Who do we know that walks on water? Oh, yeah, Yeshua. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall the vision be. Now, as he was speaking to me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed, the end shall be. The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. The rough he-goat is Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of that nation, but not in his power. And in the latter time, not in his power, because he was killed, his family was wiped out, and the 4 generals took over. The generals weren't related to him. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to a full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, shall prosper and practice, and to destroy the mighty and the holy people. So it's talking about a guy that's going to, one of the 4 generals are going to hit one of his descendants. He's going to come up and do this and really cause trouble for the Jews. And through his policy he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. Shall stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. vision of the evening and morning, which was told, is true. Wherefore, shut up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted. It was 6 certain days. Afterward I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it, because it hadn't happened yet. It did happen. We know this happened. We know the Greek Empire was strong, and that part of it was down, and we know that they had a lot of kings and their sons over Israel at this time. But they still had a temple going. But they stopped their temple sacrifice for about that amount of time, 3,600 days. And, no, 2,600, sorry. 2,300 days. And it did stop the line, and then they got together, and the Maccabees got together. It's a whole other story. And they rebelled, and they kicked them out. And they established the daily sacrifice, and then they established it and went all the way over till the Romans stopped it in 70 A.D. They stopped it, and they threw not one stone was left on another, they threw down to the ground. But it's a pattern, and it's going to happen again. They're going to finally start the daily sacrifice in the end time, and then the Antichrist is going to stop it. And the Lord always gives you equal time. Like in the days of Joseph, it was 7 years of plenty, like it was fantastic, and 7 years of famine, like you never saw. Well, he's going to shorten the days for the elect's sake, but it's still going to be 3.5 years of plenty, 3.5 years of famine. Like it's called the Great Tribulation, coming to a town near you. Everybody gets it. That's why you got to know where to go and what to do and what not to do. In fact, we're going to read about that later. The only safe place to go to is in southern Jordan when they stop the daily, not when they started. When they stop, you want to get out of Dodge, because only the 2 witnesses will be in Dodge in Jerusalem, and they'll be wearing sackcloth every day for 3.5 years. Why? Because the meal offering and drink offering is cut off from the house of the Lord, and that's why it's real important to find out what pleases Him and what displeases Him. It pleases Him. When you come in from the field, you don't serve yourself. You gird yourself. You serve your master, and afterwards you sit down and eat. You give Him the daily bread. Then you sit down and say, give me us this day our daily bread. You always that's why they always had the morning and the evening sacrifice every day. They had the meal offering, drink offering, and the lamb every morning and evening, like clockwork. Because you put Him first. So everybody should do that. And then Daniel, we're going to read here. Well, we're going to read about it right now. Chapter 9. Well, let's read chapter 9. In the first year of Darius, and now that was back when Belshazzar was still a king and a Babylonian king. But now we're going to the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans. And the first year of his reign, now get this, the first year, what is that? Gee, that's the 70th year of the captivity, right? I, Daniel, understood by books the number of years whereof the word of the Lord came unto Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolation of Jerusalem. When did Daniel, one of the wisest men that ever lived, understand that? In the 70th year. Not 69, 68, no. But he knew Jeremiah, because that's the biggest book in the Bible is Jeremiah. And everybody knew Jeremiah. And even though he was much older than Daniel was a kid when he was carried away, Daniel was a prophet. He got his books. Because he said, man, if Isaiah called me a eunuch 150 years before I was born, and his words, I want to know what Jeremiah says. So we're going to go to Jeremiah right now, because I want to show you something in Jeremiah, and I should wait till I get further down in this reading. But I want you to, I'll read it right now. Let's turn to Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 19. This is the prophet Jeremiah speaking. And he says, the word of Yahweh came unto Jeremiah, saying, thus saith Yahweh, if you can break my covenant of the day and of the covenant of the night, that there be not day and night in that season. Is it still the covenant? Is it still daytime outside? Anybody check? It still is? Okay. Okay. Then may my covenant also be broken with David, my servant, that he should not have a son, Yeshua, to reign on his throne, and with the Levites, the priests, my ministers. Oh, wait a minute. You mean his covenant still with Levi? Wow. As the host of heaven cannot be numbered, neither the sand of the sea measured, so I'll multiply the seed of David, my servant. We're the seed of David. We're the seed of Christ. We're right here. And the Levites that minister unto me. Wow. How many Levites are there? It was the smallest tribe. There's a million of them. We don't know how many, but They know who they are if they go take the DNA test like I did. I'm not one, but if they do, they can prove in Houston, Texas, whether or not you're a direct descendant of Aaron. They can prove that by the DNA. That they got off the Caiaphas' bone box. Yeah, the bad dude Caiaphas, he still was a Levite. He still was a high priest, direct descendant of Aaron. You can match up and see if you match his DNA. If you do, you're from Aaron too. Okay, verse 25. Thus saith Yahweh, if my covenant be not with day and night, and if I have not appointed the ordinance of the heaven, then will I cast away the seed of Jacob, David my servant. Okay, so in other words, the Levites still have a covenant with him. His covenant is still standing. So let's read more about this, about Daniel, what he understands. In the first year of his reign, I understand by books, okay, that 7 years were accomplished. Verse 3. And I set my face unto the Lord Elohim to seek by prayer and supplication with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. Oh my goodness. It says that. Another scripture, if you seek me with ashes, then and sackcloth and pray, then I will renew my covenant. That's another scripture. I didn't look it up yet. I should have looked it up. And I prayed unto the Lord my God, made my confession, and said, O Lord, the great and dreadful God, keeping covenant and mercy to them that love him, to them that keep his commandments. We have sinned and have committed iniquity, have done wickedly, and have rebelled, even by departing from thy precepts and from thy judgments. Gee, that's the Old Testament. Don't depart from that, okay? Precepts and judgments, don't do that. Neither have we hearkened unto thy servants the prophets, that's the Old Testament, which spake in thy name to our kings, our princes, and our fathers, and to all the people of the land. Remember, Yeshua said, this is Daniel, spoken of by Daniel. O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces as at this day. To the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to all Israel that are near and that are far off through all the countries, whither thou hast driven them, because of their trespass that they have trespassed against thee. O Lord, to us belong confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, to our fathers, because we have sinned against them. To the Lord our God belong mercies and forgivenesses, though we have rebelled against him. Neither have we obeyed the voice of Yahweh our Elohim. Who's the voice of Yahweh? Yeshua is the voice of Yahweh our Elohim. To walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants the prophets. Yes, yea, all Israel have transgressed the law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him. What sin? Sin is transgression of the Torah, the law. That's the definition of sin. Because you do that, there's wrath. He has confirmed his words which he spake against us and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven hath not been done as has been done upon Jerusalem. That was back then. During World War II, nothing had been done that had been done to Jews during the Holocaust. 6 million systematically killed, tried to wipe out every Jew. Nothing's been done like it's been done today. But then what happens right after that? Jerusalem becomes a nation again in 48, and they're back there for 73 years right now as a living, breathing nation. As is written in the law of Moses, all this evil has come upon us, yet made we not our prayer before the Lord our God, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth. Therefore hath Yahweh watched upon the evil and brought it upon us. For Yahweh our Elohim is righteous in all his works which he doeth, for we obeyed not his voice. Yeshua. And now, O Lord our Elohim, thou hast brought thy people forth out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and hast gotten thee renown, as at this day we have sinned and we have done wickedly. O Lord, according to all thy righteousness, I beseech thee, let thine anger and thine fury be turned away from thy city, Jerusalem, thy holy mountain, because for our sins and for the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and thy people are become a reproach to all that are about us. Now therefore, O our God, hear the prayer of thy servant and his supplications, and cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary that is desolate, for the Lord's sake. O my Lord, incline thine ear and hear. Open thine eyes and behold our desolations, and the city which is called by thy name. For we do not present our supplications before thee for our righteousness, but for thy great mercies. That's what you always say, not because we're so right, because he's so merciful. He'll show us the right way. He'll interpret, give us the understanding of his scriptures. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hearken and do. Defer not for thine own sake. O my God, for thy city and thy people are called by thy name. So he's standing on the word. He understood that Jeremiah said 70 years would be accomplished, and this is the 70th full year. So he understands the scriptures. And he even said, it said in Jeremiah, it said, when you understand these things, when you seek the Lord, then I'll hear. You will seek him in that day, and then he'll hear. Daniel says, yea, while I was speaking and praying, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation. What do you think Daniel was praying toward at the time of the evening oblation? Jerusalem. What had happened? The daily sacrifice had been cut off. He was lifting up his hands, be as the evening sacrifice. He was praying at the time. That impressed me so much, 18 years. I haven't missed the morning. I can count on my two hands maybe. The number of times I haven't prayed toward Jerusalem, eastward, this way. At 9 a.m. Texas time, it's 3 p.m., the time of the evening sacrifice. Really important to God. Because he says, let the lifting of my hands be as the evening sacrifice. Where was his hands at 3 p.m.? His hands were lifted up when he was crucified. You know, he's the way, the truth, life. He does it even in death. He keeps the commandments. How much more should we when we're alive and reading these instructions? And he informed me and talked to me and said, O Daniel, I'm now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. At the beginning of thy supplications, the commandment came forth, and I'm come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Wait a minute. This is Gabriel he says, I'm Gabriel that stand in the presence of God. I don't disintegrate. I'm bad. I'm powerful. But I stand in his presence. And I'm saying, man, you're greatly beloved. That's from the Almighty Creator of every atom in the universe. That messenger, angels are messengers. That's the message from the Creator of every atom in the universe. You're great. I love you. You're praying toward Jerusalem like Solomon had said to do. And I consumed the sacrifice with fire. Acknowledged Solomon over 500 years earlier. That's wonderful. About 500. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. 77s are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. What's the most holy? The Holy of Holies. What's inside the Holy of Holies? The Ark of the Covenant. Your mercy seat on the Ark of the Covenant. Who sits on it? It's he that sitteth between the cherubims. God. So it says, enter anoint. So let's see. It's going to be, that's 490 years that he's talking about right now. 70 weeks. Let's see. 77s. Know therefore and understand from the going forth of the commandment to restore and rebuild Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks, 62 weeks. There's a guy in 1898, I forgot his name, but he figured, Darius, Cyrus said, go back and rebuild the temple. Then they after a few decades, they were given trouble and they were making it hard for him. And so another king, Darius, made a decree and searched it out and found out, yeah, it was said. So from his decree, which was about 470-something years before Christ, this guy figured to the day when Jesus was baptized. Thou art the Lamb of God that taketh, John the Baptist acknowledged him and baptized him. He was baptized. Was exactly 483 years. To the day the guy figured it out. Really intelligent guy. He used all these scriptures and all these ancient histories and dates and everything to the day of Messiah. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. So after that 483 years, he gets cut off. He dies. The Messiah dies. But not for himself. He didn't die for his sins. And the people of the prince that shall come, the Romans, they're going to come. Prince that shall come, shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. That was 70 AD when that was done. 70 AD, the city and the sanctuary was destroyed. Well, the city and the sanctuary, the temple was left one stone upon another that wasn't thrown off Temple Mount. Thrown down off Temple Mount and on it, but thrown down. The street down at the southwest corner, the Wailing Wall, southwest corner, is so concave because they were throwing big stones down from above. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and the end of the war, desolations are determined. Now here's the last verse of this chapter, and it's very important. And he shall Gibor the covenant, confirm, make strong the covenant with many for 1/7. Who's his covenant with? Well, his covenant's with David, but my covenant's with Levi. He said that. He said, my covenant's with Levi. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. Who's the only ones can offer the sacrifice? Only one. Levites. That's right. Don't forget the Levites, fatherless and widow. You don't want to get fatherless. They don't have a father, the little widow and the children and fatherless. Oh, don't forget them. Oh, don't forget have y'all forgotten the Levites? Well, we don't see them around here. We don't see them offering the daily sacrifice. Stay tuned, you will. Because they know who they are. Because knowledge is increased, and many are running to and from these last days, and they got the knowledge. They can prove you're a descendant of Aaron by the DNA of Caiaphas. Isn't that amazing? That's really amazing. So they can prove. So after 3.5 years, he causes the sacrifice to cease. For the spreading of abomination, he shall make it desolate. That's called the desolation, abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Yeshua quotes that. Okay? Until the consummation of that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So, in other words, everything is patterned to God. If that which has been is that which shall be, there's no new thing under the sun. And he does it so that men should fear before him. Because he tells you what's going to happen. He declares the end from the beginning. From the very beginning. Who declared in the beginning? Oh yeah, Moses wrote in the beginning. Let's turn to Moses for a second. He wrote over 20% of the Bible, but he also only wrote one psalm. 5 books, which is over 20% of the Bible, but only one psalm, Psalm 90. And in that psalm, I'm going to read you a few scriptures, you'll recognize them. Because Peter the Apostle said, a day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. But in Psalm 90, verse 4, it said, for 1,000 years are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. So he and Peter agree, that's 2 witnesses. But later on he says, our days, okay, verse 10. This is chapter 90, verse 10, and this agrees perfectly with Daniel and with Revelation. The days of our years are 70. Now wait a minute. Moses lived to be 120, his brother 123, Aaron, and his sister old Miriam older than that. But he's saying our days are 70 years. Well, go check it out and see what's the daily average lifespan in a lot of countries. 70 or under. And some of them are over, but still 70 is around the time. And I'm 72, glory to God, so I'm overdoing that. And if by reason of strength, and that's my name, Gilbert is my name, they be 80 years, that's 80 years, yet is their strength labor, trouble, and sorrow. This is Jacob's trouble, and the beginning of sorrows has to happen by 80, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. Gee, rapture. When's that word fly away used? Fly first used. Oh, in chapter 1 it says, and fowls that may fly in the open firmament. It's going to be open to us. We're going to be flying. Now, back then, nobody flew. Now there's all kinds of scriptures talking about we're going to be flying and stuff like that. But right here, we fly away. Meet him in the air. He comes back. We're going to meet him in the air. That's what it says. I don't want to meet him in the ground. I want to meet him in the air. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to fly like the wind. But anyway, so that's what this is the only psalm that's accredited to Moses, and it says that. And we fly away. So I'm excited that Daniel really, and Yeshua endorsed Daniel so much. And I want to read just chapter 10 just to get going on that big long vision, and in a few days we'll finish it. But And then we'll ask for questions on 9 and 8. In the third year of Cyrus, and now remember, this is 73-year captivity. Third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar. And this thing was true, but the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing, and had understanding in the vision. In those days, Daniel was mourning 3 full weeks. That means he was fasting. He and certain stuff. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. That's the way they used to do things back then. They wouldn't bathe or anything for 3, what they were fasting. They figured, I'm separate, I'm done eating, drinking, or anything. Now this one, he wasn't eating any pleasant food or anything. And in the 24th day of the first month, wow, he fasted. Do you know what he fasted? He fasted Passover. He's in the captivity. He's not in Jerusalem. You got to be in Jerusalem to keep Passover. So he fasted Passover. He fasted unleavened bread too. I mean, he must have been serious. I mean, Daniel knew. His name's in the book, so he's endorsed. If he wasn't endorsed, if he was saying something wrong, Yeshua would have said, spoken of by Daniel, go to Daniel. No. So he fasted too. I'm not telling anybody to fast Passover. I'm saying he did because he was in captivity. And he didn't eat any pleasant food and no wine. You always drink wine at Passover. I mean, it's a normal thing. And in the 420th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel, then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and the eyes as lamps of fire. And his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass. And the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned into me into corruption, and I retained no strength. So he really didn't eat much for those 3 weeks. He didn't have a lot of sustenance. Yet heard I the voice of his words. And when I heard the voice of his words, then I was in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground. Behold, a hand touched me, which set me upright on my knees and upon the palms of my hands. It said to me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved. Okay, so there you go. He's loved. So apparently he didn't blow it by fasting Passover. He must have fasted, just not everything, but he was mourning because he couldn't be in Jerusalem for the feast. But he faced that way at least. Understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright. For unto thee am I now sent. And when I had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy Elohim, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. Below Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days. When he had spoken such words unto me, I set my face toward the ground, and I became dumb. Behold, one like the similitude of the sons of man touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spake, and said unto him that stood before me, O my Lord, by the vision my sorrows are turned upon me, and I have retained no strength. How can the servant of this my Lord talk with this my Lord? Whereas for me, straightway there remain no strength in me, neither is there breath left in me. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me, and said, O man, greatly beloved. Now that's the third time he's saying, O man, greatly beloved. Fear not, peace be unto thee, be strong, yea, be strong. When he had spoken to me, I was strengthened, and said, Let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Then said he, Knowest thou wherefore I come unto thee? And now will I return and fight with the prince of Persia, and when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come. Now this is hundreds and hundreds of years after Daniel's death. But he's saying this is going to happen. What's going to happen? This is the order. First you get Persia, then you had Babylon, now you have Persia, now you have Greece. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scriptures of truth. There's none that holdeth with me in these things, but Michael your prince. So you always need two witnesses to hold anything. Don't hold it in by yourself. If the Lord told you something, the Lord tells you something out there, it's to tell me. If he tells me something, it's to tell you. Then they that fear the Lord spake often one to another. I'm one and you're another. We got to talk it up. The Lord's coming back. And he hears what you're saying. I want him to hear me glorify him. Oh, he's so wonderful in glory. I just can't wait, man. He's terrible to the workers of iniquity. I just want to serve him with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. Because he's coming back. I believe it. And I'm waiting for him. Come on, I'm waiting for him. That's what I see everything pointing to it. So did Daniel. Did Daniel see his second coming? No. But he told him, go ahead, you can sleep. In fact, the last verse of Daniel says, but go thy way till the end, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. He's going to stand, he's going to rise from the dead and see him. And you got to believe that too. That's why we're here. Why are we here? Because there's a resurrection. There's hope. That's the hope we have. Well, I hope you enjoyed this reading, but just wait. It's going to get better and better. The light shines more and more until the perfect day. So join us again as we continue on in the book of Daniel.